What interferes with bone health? We talked about follicular stimulating hormone. What it does is it just matures, actually stimulates the osteoclasts, so they spend more time in the repair process, and it just guts, makes the bigger hole, and it just interferes with that process. Diet, phosphates. Most of the phosphates that are taken in either come from the red meat or from soda pop. And so I think that's why we put soda pop in all the high schools, so that we can have more osteoporosis. Makes absolutely no sense to be putting that in high schools. But phosphates are put in the pop because if we didn't have the phosphate in there, the carbon dioxide would become a more aggressive toxin called carbonic acid. And nobody would drink it. So the phosphate buffer has to be in there. Phosphorus has to be mashed in the body 1-to-1 with calcium. Well, 99% of all the calcium in the body is in the bones. So the body has to pull the calcium out of the bones in order to match it with the phosphate. Sugar, caffeine, both of these increase calcium loss from the body. Loss meaning out through the urine. More sugar, more calcium loss. More caffeine, more calcium loss. There are some metals that interfere. They actually get put in as minerals into the bone and then interferes with how strong the bone is. Aluminum, lead, cadmium, tin, fluoride. Fluoride. So fluoride interferes. In fact, high enough fluoride levels cause mottling of the teeth. Fluoride is a toxin as far as I'm concerned. Interference with nutrient absorption. So we can't absorb these vitamins or the minerals. If the gastric acid production is reduced, some of us as we get older, the hydrochloric acid in the intestinal tract in the stomach is not being formed. That means that the meat, those heavy proteins, can't be broken down in the stomach, which means it will go clear through the system without breaking it down. Some of those amino acids may not be available. And then we compound that by taking antacids or by taking Prilosec or some other medication that interferes with the production of acid, so now we have a stomach that cannot break down food. Pancreatic enzyme deficiency. As we get older, there tends to be more of that. Food allergies interfering with the causing inflammation in the gut. Now we have swelling in the gut, and those transfer processes may not be working nearly as well to transfer the minerals and vitamins from the gut into the body. Celiac disease, which is a gluten or a wheat allergy. Gluten or gliadin is reasonably common. Why are we seeing so much more of that today than we were before? They introduced a concept to possibly explain that with the wheat processing. As you start to graft in certain things, the gluten amount that is in wheat today is 5 times more than it was 50 years ago. So is that the reason why we're having more wheat and gluten allergies? Nobody knows the answer to that, but that's a possibility. But once you have celiac disease, once the wheat, the gluten is formed or taken into the body reacts to it, it starts to break down and erode the surface area of the gut. The surface area of the small intestines, 20 feet long, but there's little microvilli in the small intestines. And if we were to take those microvilli and spread them out on the floor, we would have the surface absorption area of the small intestine be about the same as a single tennis court. That's how much absorptive capability the small intestines have. The way to diagnose celiac disease is they take a scope down in the stomach into the small intestine and get a biopsy. And that biopsy shows that those microvilli no longer exist. There's so much inflammation taking place in the intestinal tract from celiac or from the introduction of gluten that now we have a surface area that is practically non-existent in the small intestines. And so nothing's going to absorb, or very little is going to absorb. So anything that interferes with the nutrient absorption is going to be a problem. Regular antibiotic use destroys the intestinal flora. The normal bacteria, the normal intestinal flora is what forms vitamin K. There are a couple of drugs that interfere with the osteoclasts. Fosamax and Actonel are the two that you're probably most familiar with. So if you go into your standard medicine doctor and there's osteoporosis or osteopenia, there's three things he's going to do: calcium, vitamin D, and Fosamax or Actonel. Fosamax or Actonel interfere with the bone healing, the bone repair. So after a couple of years, after Fosamax came on the market, now what appeared in the literature were some jaw bone fractures that had been very, very rare, and now were starting to appear only in people that had been on Fosamax for years. We know that it interferes with the repair and the strength of the bone tissue.